The day had been full of activities, shopping, exploring more beaches, visiting temples, and now, as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, you both found yourselves relaxing in a quiet area of a park. It was almost 4:30 p.m., and while Jungkook seemed tired, you still had energy to burn. He slouched on a bench, scrolling through his phone checking emails, occasionally glancing up to check on you as you wandered over to the swing set. Jungkook had noticed something about you during this trip. You weren't always childish. In fact, in many situations, you behaved maturely, like any adult would. But sometimes, your playful side came out in ways that reminded him of a carefree child, and today was one of those times. You were no less than a 5Y or O. But when your mind shifted into that childlike state, it often led to chaos as, if you couldn't help but stir things up. He watched you swinging back and forth, a content smile on your face as you licked an ice cream cone, completely immersed in your own little world. He now for sometimes shifted his focus completely on checking his emails. As you were swinging, a small boy, probably around 7 years old, came running towards the swing set. Without warning, he bumped into you, causing you to lose grip of your ice cream. It fell to the ground, splattering across the dirt. The boy didn't even look at you as he took the swing next to yours, completely ignoring the fact that he had just ruined your treat. Your frustration began to build. It wasn't just the lost ice cream. It was the way the boy had brushed you off, as if you didn't matter. You looked over at him, annoyance clear in your voice as you said, "Yin, hey, what you did was rude. You should say sorry to me." The boy glanced at you unimpressed. "Kid, why should I? You're so big. Why are you even sitting here? This is for kids." His words stung, bringing a flush of embarrassment to your cheeks. You couldn't believe this child was talking to you like this. You gave him one last chance to apologize, but he just ignored you, continuing to swing as if nothing had happened. Your irritation turned to anger. You narrowed your eyes, feeling a surge of frustration. You looked at him, with pure hate in your eyes, and before you could stop yourself, you pushed him off the swing. The boy hit the ground and immediately began to cry, loud, piercing wails that echoed across the park. You felt a wave of satisfaction wash over you, thinking it served him right for being so rude. But the satisfaction was short-lived as you saw Jungkook running towards you. Concern etched on his face. "Jungkook, Yin, what happened?" Jungkook asked, his voice a mix of confusion and worry. He knelt beside the crying child, scooping him up in his arms. "Why didn't you help him?" Relief washed over you as you realized he hadn't seen you push the boy. Trying to keep your voice steady, you stammered, "Yin, I am sorry. Are you okay, little kid?" You forced yourself to show fake concern, but you stayed seated on the swing, feeling too embarrassed and guilty to stand, or maybe you just don't care. The boy's cries grew louder, and as Jungkook inspected him, his eyes widened. "Jungkook, oh my god, you're bleeding," he exclaimed, noticing a small trickle of blood running down the child's forehead. Your heart sank. You hadn't meant for him to get hurt like this. It was just a little push, nothing more. But now, seeing the blood, guilt began to gnaw at you. Before you could react, the boy's mother hurried over, her face pale with worry. "Mother, oh my god, what happened?" she gasped, taking her son from Jungkook's arms. The boy pointed a trembling finger at you, his face scrunched up in pain. "Kid, she pushed me," he cried, his voice thick with tears. The mother's eyes narrowed as she looked at you with disdain. She muttered a quick thank you to Jungkook before turning her full attention to her son, gently wiping away his tears. "Jungkook, Yin, did you really push him?" Jungkook asked, his voice low and disappointed. You felt your face flush with shame. "Yin, he threw my ice cream first," you mumbled, trying to justify your actions, but Jungkook's frustration boiled over. "Jungkook, so you thought pushing him off a swing was the right response? He's just a child, Yin. What's wrong with you? You could have come to me, I would have bought you another ice cream. But this is just shameful. He's bleeding, Yin. How could you do that?" His words hit you like a ton of bricks. Your eyes filled with tears as you stared down at your lap, too ashamed to meet his gaze. You had never seen Jungkook this angry before, and it hurt more than you expected. "Jungkook, get up, Yin," Jungkook said, his voice firm. "We're going back to the hotel." You nodded silently and got up, following him as he led the way to the cab. The ride back to the hotel was tense and silent. You refused to look at Jungkook, staring out the window instead, feeling the sting of his words, replaying in your mind. You knew you had messed up, and now, you weren't even sure how to fix it. Once you both reached the hotel room, you sat down on the bed, still not saying a word. Jungkook sighed heavily, rubbing his temples as if trying to dispel his frustration. Jungkook, go freshen up, he finally said, his tone softer but still firm. I'll order some light food, okay? You didn't respond. Instead, you grabbed your clothes and walked into the bathroom, closing the door behind you with a thud. Jungkook sat on the edge of the bed, looking down at his hands. He hated seeing you so upset, but he couldn't stop thinking about the crying child and the blood on his forehead. He was struggling to understand how you could act so careless, but nonetheless he has to console you and say sorry. You came out of the bathroom, your body still damp from the shower, and, without saying a word, you headed straight to bed. Jungkook watched you, quietly, noticing how you avoided his gaze, pulling the blanket up to cover yourself completely. He sighed, placing the food on the nightstand. Jungkook, baby, eat first, and then you can sleep, he gently urged, hoping you would listen. I'll come after freshening up too, okay? But when he returned after freshening up, he found the food untouched, and you were still curled up in the same position. He was dressed only in his lower pants, with his abs on full display. He put the towel aside and approached the bed. He gently shook your shoulder. Jungkook, baby, you need to eat before going to bed, he said softly. You shook him off, burying yourself deeper under the covers. Jungkook knew he couldn't let this go. He couldn't stand the idea of you being upset with him, so he decided to take action. Silently, he lay down beside you and grabbed the edge of the blanket. With a swift tug, he yanked it away, making you gasp in surprise. Yin, An, move away. I hate you, you screamed, reaching for the blanket on again. But before you could grab it, Jungkook was quicker. He pulled you into his lap, holding you tightly despite your wiggling and protests. You struggled harder as his grip on you was tight. Jungkook, I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice full of sincerity and regret as he held you tightly. Please forgive me, I'll never yell at you again, I promise. You continued to squirm in his grip, but his hold was firm yet gentle, refusing to let you go. He rested his chin on your shoulder, his breath warm against your neck as he whispered, Jungkook, I hate seeing you like this. Please talk to me, baby. Gradually, your resistance weakened, and Jungkook could feel the tension in your body start to melt away. Sensing the change, he placed a soft kiss just above your ear, his lips barely brushing your skin. Jungkook, aren't you going to eat, huh? Because of me, he whispered, his voice laced with a mix of playfulness and concern. You didn't respond, your silence speaking volumes, but Jungkook wasn't one to give up easily. Slowly and gently his hand slid under your t-shirt's fabric, his fingers lightly tracing and rubbing the soft skin of your stomach, sending a shiver down your spine. Jungkook, I'm sorry, Yin, he whispered again, his tone tender and intimate as his hands moved more upwards. He was enjoying your reaction and wanted more of it. Without a warning, his one finger teasingly traced slow tingly circles around your navel while the other hand gently brushed his fingers between your Bts. The sensation made you flinch, your eyes snapping open in surprise. Yin, Jeon Jungkook, he smirked, clearly enjoying your reaction. He leaned in, his lips brushing against your earlobe as he bit down softly before whispering in your ear. Jungkook, now, tell me, what do you want to eat, me or the food? Your breath hitched, and you felt your face flush with embarrassment. Yin, FO food, you stammered, barely able to form the word as your heart raced in your chest. Jungkook chuckled softly, clearly satisfied by your response. His grip on you loosened slightly as he leaned over to grab the food package from the nightstand, keeping you securely on his lap as he did so. He began to feed you, his gaze never leaving your face, watching intently. With each bite you took. As you neared the end of the meal, Jungkook paused, his eyes softening as he looked at you. Jungkook, are you still mad at me? He asked quietly, his voice filled with genuine concern. You looked up at him, your eyes wide and filled with emotion. Yin, no, the fault is mine. Why are you apologizing? You murmured, your voice tinged with guilt and sadness. Jungkook smiled gently, reaching out to brush a stray strand of hair behind your ear. Jungkook, because I never want you to feel hurt or upset because of me. I care about you too much to let something like this come between us. His words made your heart swell with warmth, and you found yourself leaning into his touch, the hurt from earlier slowly fading away. Yin, I just didn't like that you yelled at me. It made me feel small, you admitted, your voice barely above a whisper, but full of honesty. Jungkook's expression softened even more, and he cupped your face in his hands, his thumbs gently stroking your cheeks. Jungkook, I know, and I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. Jungkook looked at you intently, his eyes searching yours as he spoke again softly. Jungkook, but Yin, tell me one thing honestly, if that kid was our child, would you have done the same to him? Your eyes widened in shock at his words, and you quickly shook your head, your heart pounding. The food got stuck in your mouth as you were unable to gulp it. Yin, no way. I would never do that to our child, you insisted, your voice trembling with the intensity of your emotions. Jungkook nodded slowly, his gaze still locked on you. Yin, exactly, he said quietly, his voice firm but gentle. That's why I was so upset. I know you didn't mean any harm, but seeing that little boy cry, it made me think about our future, about how we would want to protect our own children one day. You swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling over you. Yin, I didn't think about it like that. I'm sorry, he sighed, running a hand through your hair, his tenderness clear. Jungkook, you know, kids can be rude sometimes, but they don't know any better. They're just learning. It's our job as adults to be patient with them, even when they're not being fair. You nodded slowly and felt a pang of guilt, realizing how your actions must have looked to him. You bit your lip, feeling a wave of emotion wash over you. Without a second thought, you hugged him tightly, pressing your face against his chest. Jungkook, don't worry, I'll treat our kids well, you murmured, feeling the warmth of his embrace. Jungkook smiled softly, relieved that you understood the importance of what he was saying. But just as he was about to relax, he heard you mutter, under your breath, Yin, but that kid deserved it. His eyes widened, and he quickly pulled back, slightly, looking at you with a mix of surprise and amusement. Jungkook, hey, again, he said, raising an eyebrow. You quickly backtracked, your cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Yin, no, I was saying, he didn't deserve that. I should have at least said sorry to him. You hesitated, trying to avoid his gaze as you fumbled with your words. Let's just eat. You haven't eaten either. Jungkook chuckled softly, clearly amused by your attempt to cover up. Not wanting to push you further, he pulled you closer again, pressing a kiss to your forehead. Jungkook, let's eat then. We can leave the past where it belongs. You nodded, feeling a bit sheepish but grateful that Jungkook wasn't holding anything against you. It was your last day in the Mexican city, and the memories you and Jungkook had created over the past few days made the thought of leaving bittersweet. Tomorrow, you'd both be on a flight back home, but for now, you were enjoying a well-deserved rest after a day full of excitement. It was around 1:30 p.m., and the room was quiet, save for the rhythmic breathing of Jungkook beside you. He was lying straight on the bed, deep in sleep, while you had somehow ended up upside down, your feet near his head. Initially, you both had fallen asleep in each other's arms, but as sleep took over, your positions shifted. The day's activities had left Jungkook exhausted, and he was completely knocked out, lost in the depths of his dreams. But suddenly, his peace was shattered by the sound of heavy rain pounding against the windows. His body jerked awake as the loud noise broke his sleep. Sweat started to form on his forehead as his eyes shot open. The familiar sound of thunder booming outside made his heart beat faster. He sat up quickly, breathing fast, and glanced over at you, still peacefully asleep. A smile creeped onto his face despite his rising panic. But the rain continued to pour down harder, the thunder growing more intense, echoing the storms of his past. Each flash of lightning lit up the room and brought back memories he didn't want to remember. The dark times office life played in his mind, the day he chose the mafia path, and the reason was revenge. Each flash of lightning now brought back that memory, making it feel as raw as the day it happened. The rain had been just as heavy then, and he remembered screaming for his father, hoping he would somehow respond. Jungkook, Dad, he whispered to himself, his voice breaking as he relived that terrible moment. He could still see his father's lifeless body on the ground, the rain soaking everything. He had run to him, shouting for him to wake up, but no matter how loud he screamed, there was only silence. Now, lying in bed, the rain seemed even louder, as if the world was crying with him. His body shook as he buried his face in the pillow, trying to muffle his sobs, as to not wake you up. He held onto the pillow tightly, wishing he could forget that day or at least make the pain go away. Here, you were snoring lightly when a particularly harsh clap of thunder startled you awake. At first, you didn't think much of it and were about to drift back to sleep when you heard a strange muffled sound. It was faint, but unmistakably the sound of someone crying. Your heart skipped a beat as the thought of Jungkook crossed your mind. You quickly sat up, your eyes adjusting to the dim light in the room, and your gaze fell upon him. There he was, curled up in a ball, clutching a pillow to his chest as if it were a lifeline. His body was trembling, and even in the darkness, you could see the tears streaming down his face. Your eyes widened in shock as you took in the sight of him like this, so vulnerable, so broken. You reached out, gently shaking him, your voice laced with concern. Jeon Jungkook. You called softly, but he didn't respond. He was lost in his own world, the pain too deep to hear you. Panic began to rise within you as you watched him, unsure of how to help. You'd never seen him like this before, and it broke your heart to see the strong, confident man you knew reduced to such a state. You couldn't just stand by and do nothing, so you shook him again, more firmly this time, and called his name louder. Jeon Jungkook, please, talk to me, you pleaded, your voice trembling with worry. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he blinked and slowly turned his head to look at you. His eyes were red and swollen, the pain in them so raw it nearly brought tears to your own eyes. For a moment, he just stared at you, as if he couldn't quite believe you were real. Then, without warning, he broke down completely, the sobs racking his body as he reached out for you. You didn't hesitate. As you saw his trembling hand tugging at the sleeves of your shirt, you instantly understood what he needed. You wrapped your arms around him, pulling him close. He buried his face in your chest, his body shaking with uncontrollable sobs. He cried out your name, his voice breaking with each desperate scream. But you didn't care. All that mattered was comforting him, letting him know that he wasn't alone. Jeon, it's okay, Jungkook, you whispered, stroking his hair gently. I'm here. I'm right here. He clung to you as if you were his only anchor in a storm. You could feel the tension in his body slowly beginning to ease as you continued to hold him, your presence a soothing balm to his tortured soul. After a while, his sobs began to subside, replaced by quiet sniffles. His breathing, once ragged and uneven, gradually steadied as he took comfort in your embrace. You didn't rush him, didn't try to make him talk before he was ready. You just held him, offering him the silent support he so desperately needed. When he finally pulled back slightly, his eyes met yours, and you could see the gratitude in them. He wiped at his tear-streaked face, embarrassed by his outburst, but you quickly shook your head, not wanting him to feel ashamed. Jeon, don't, you said softly. Don't you dare hide anything from me. You said softly, but with a firm edge to your voice. It's okay to let it out. Jungkook swallowed hard, nodding as he tried to gather himself. Jungkook, I'm sorry, he muttered, his voice hoarse from crying. I didn't mean to scare you. Jeon, you didn't, you assured him, patting your lap gently. Without hesitation, Jungkook shifted, placing his head on your lap, seeking comfort. You began to softly caress his hair, your fingers threading through the strands as you encouraged him to speak. Jeon, talk to me, you urged gently. What happened? He hesitated for a moment, his gaze dropping to the bed. Jungkook, it's just the rain, the thunder. It brought back memories I'd rather forget. Jungkook, his voice cracked, and he had to take a deep breath before continuing. I never wanted you to see me like this. I'm supposed to be the strong one, the one who protects you. Jeon, and you are, you said firmly, your fingers continuing to soothe him as they moved through his hair. But that doesn't mean you have to carry all this weight alone. I'm here for you, Jungkook, just like you've always been there for me. We're in this together, okay? He looked up at you from your lap, his eyes searching yours, trying to find the comfort in your words. Slowly, he nodded, the tension in his shoulders finally beginning to ease. Jungkook, I love you, he whispered, his voice barely audible. You smiled softly, leaning down to press a gentle kiss to his forehead. As your lips brushed against his skin, you felt him relax slightly beneath your touch. You began to trace his wet eyelids with your fingers, watching as his eyes fluttered shut in response. The sound of the rain outside faded into the background, and it was as if the world had shrunk to just the two of you in that moment. Your fingers continued their delicate exploration, moving down to trace the bridge of his nose, then along his eyebrows, down to his chin. You pressed lightly on his facial features, memorizing every curve and line of his face. His eyes were closed, wanting to memorize your feelings against him too. When your hands finally reached his lips, you paused, feeling the warmth of his breath against your fingertips. The urge to comfort him in every way you could took over, and you leaned down, closing the distance between you as you pressed your lips to his. The kiss started soft and tender, but the need to erase the pain in his heart quickly took over. Jungkook's hands found their way to the back of your head, pulling you closer as he sat up straight, deepening the kiss with a newfound intensity. His lips moved against yours with a desperate urgency, as if he was trying to pour all of his emotions into the kiss, to find solace in your touch. You struggled to keep up with the intensity, your breath hitching as he kissed you more and more, refusing to let go. The air between you grew heated, and you felt your heart pounding in your chest, but he was relentless, as if afraid to stop. Finally, just when you thought you might run out of breath, Jungkook seemed to come to his senses. He pulled away, his breath ragged, and looked into your eyes with a mix of apology and lingering desire. "Jungkook, I am sorry," he stammered, his voice still thick with emotion. Your face flushed with heat, and you quickly averted your gaze, trying to hide your embarrassment. But just then his phone rang. You waited for him to pick up, but he was intensely staring at you as if he couldn't hear anything except your voice. "Yin, Jungkook, your phone," you muttered, nodding towards it. "Jungkook, huh, oh, sorry, yeah." Grateful for the distraction, Jungkook reached for his phone and answered the call. You could hear the other person on the line, their voice muffled, but clear enough to catch the important information. "Sir, the flight tomorrow is cancelled due to the heavy rain," the person on the other end informed him. Jungkook listened silently, his gaze flickering back to you. When the call ended, he put the phone down and looked at you, his expression a mix of concern and something else, something deeper. "Jungkook, we'll have to stay here a bit longer," he said, his voice calmer now, but still carrying the intensity of everything that had just happened. You nodded, feeling a mix of emotions yourself. You took a deep breath and said softly, "Yin, I hope you're okay now. Let's sleep." Jungkook looked at you with gratitude, his eyes softened by your words and the comforting embrace you offered. "Jungkook, yeah, thank you. I'm glad that now I have you," he whispered, feeling a deep sense of relief and warmth. He pulled you closer, wrapping his arms around you as you settled into the bed. Together, the tension of the night seemed to melt away in the safety of his embrace. You both fell asleep, wrapped in each other's arms, with Jungkook feeling grateful for your support and the comfort you provided. Almost a year had passed since that stormy night, and you and Jungkook had gone through rough and tough together. In this means time, you both were happy and stayed strong with each other. Unexpectedly, you found yourselves in Paris for a very special reason you didn't know. As you stood in front of the Eiffel Tower, its lights shimmering in the twilight, Jungkook dropped to one knee and proposed to you. The moment was magical, filled with love and joy. Tears welled up in your eyes as you looked at the sparkling diamond and then at him, his gaze full of love and anticipation. Your heart raced, overwhelmed by the depth of emotion you felt. With a trembling voice, you whispered, "Yin, yes, Jungkook, 1,000 times, yes." Your voice cracked with happiness as you nodded vigorously. Jungkook slipped the ring onto your finger, and you threw your arms around him, your tears spilling over as you laughed and cried at the same time. Now, you were both standing before a small, intimate gathering, taking your vows in the shadow of the iconic landmark. The ceremony was simple, but deeply meaningful. As you exchanged promises and rings, you felt a profound sense of contentment and happiness. The absence of your parents was a quiet ache, but their memory was overshadowed by the joy of this new chapter with Jungkook. Every moment of the day was filled with laughter and love. You and Jungkook embraced, kissed, and celebrated your union, knowing that this was the beginning of a beautiful journey together. As you both continued walking hand in hand through the charming streets of Paris, Jungkook couldn't help but keep his gaze fixed on you, his eyes filled with adoration. "Jungkook, I love you," he repeated softly, his voice full of genuine affection. Each time he said it, a smile spread across your face, and you squeezed his hand tighter. You spotted a picturesque bridge nearby and suddenly had an idea. Yin, let's do something fun, you said, excitement in your voice as you tugged him toward the bridge. Jungkook laughed and followed your lead. Jungkook, what do you have in mind, my sweetheart? He asked, his smile playful. Yin, I want to recreate a scene from Titanic with you, you said, grinning from ear to ear. Jungkook chuckled heartily. Jungkook, you know, I could buy you a whole cruise for that, he joked, shaking his head. You pouted slightly, insisting, Yin, no, I want to do it here. Why waste money? Just imagine this bridge is a ship. He raised an eyebrow, amused by your enthusiasm. Jungkook, all right, let's do it. Show me how it's done. You positioned yourselves at the edge of the bridge, mimicking the famous Titanic pose. You spread your arms wide and leaned forward, just like the characters in the movie. Yin, hold me from behind. Jungkook stood behind you, holding you securely, as the wind gently tousled your hair. Yin, feel like the king of the world, you said, laughing as you looked out over the river below. Jungkook laughed along, his eyes twinkling with joy as he looked at you. Jungkook, this is so much fun, he said, giving you a gentle squeeze. You both stayed on the bridge for a while, enjoying the playful scene you had created. The evening air was filled with your laughter and the soft murmur of the river below. The Eiffel Tower's lights sparkled in the distance, adding to the magic of the night. It was a moment of pure happiness, a simple yet unforgettable memory that would stay with both of you forever.